50 years in the making, half a century of excellence in the sales ring and on the racecourse, horses who've lifted the hearts of everyone who loves our sport. Through achievement and brilliance, through endeavours in racing's greatest theatres, a common thread emerges, the Derby Sale. Since I've been attending sales from early childhood, a few certain names remain consistent. One of them is Doyle, as in Jack, as in Peter, as in Ross. 3 generations consistently at the cutting edge of thoroughbred trade. I'm in Greystones, where I'm going to catch up with Peter and Ross and have a natter. Peter and Ross, it's a remarkable dynasty. Was there ever a chance of a different career path for either of you?
Well, I signed for my articles in accountancy in a firm in 17 Kildare Street called Atkins Churnside and Company. And you got £1 a week, and I had to bring my own umbrella. So I lasted 18 months.
And that was it?
And then I started working for my brother-in-law, selling addressing machines and printing machines. And that lasted 2 years. And then I was back to the ranch, back home.
Ross, did you ever think of, I mean, you were a rugby player and all sorts of things of distinction.
Well, I was lucky because when I was growing up in school and then college, I got a bit of time to play it, which was great. But then when college was over, real life had to start. And I went into the business with Anna and Peter, but it was something I was always fascinated by growing up, and you're surrounded by it. But like a lot of people in our industry, you're surrounded by people, family members who are in the business. So it was always a fascinating insight for me, and I loved it from a young age.
Well, you've obviously worked hugely successfully with your dad, and Peter, you worked so well with Jack. I like to think that I know certain things about Jack, but I'd say I'm only scratching the surface. What a remarkable man. When did horses come into his life?
Well, he won a pony competition as I think was a 7-year-old in the RDS back in the 20s. And his father was always had ponies and horses, and he was a former blacksmith.
He grew up here, in
Bray,
not far away.
In Bray, yeah, in a pub in Bray. My grandfather ended up marrying into the business in the pub in Bray, and they always had ponies for Jack to ride, and that's what he used to do. And he then rode as an amateur jockey for a while.
Ross, he was a remarkable athlete. I mean, he was the 100 yards champion of Ireland. He played rugby incredibly. All sorts of things. I mean, actually, the only thing I think that cost him money was golf, wasn't it?
Correct.
Tell us the story.
Well, he was such a good athlete. He was an amazing athlete. He could do anything. So he had a bet in 1930 something, late 30s, with a pal of his, £500 in those days, that he'd get into single figures in a year. Well, he got to 10, and he threw the clubs into the river. That was the end of golf for him. He couldn't get it.
He was a remarkable judge of a horse. Peter, you worked with him. What were his turn-ons and turn-offs?
Well, he could just see things in horses. He understood horses and the movement and everything that I only learned much later, you know. But he had an eye for a horse, real good eye. An athlete he could pick out, you know.
And you worked so well with him?
Well, I was lucky, and I did join him, and I used to walk behind him and Captain Ryan Price in England. They didn't tell you anything, you had to pick it up. And then John Sutcliffe Jr. came along, and Fred Rymel, Fred was a great client of Jack's, you know. I
want to hear all about them. But one name that is synonymous with successive Doyles is the word Hannon. You both have worked incredibly with two Richards. Yes. What is it about the Hannons and the Doyles that makes such success? You've won the Tattersalls Island sales race on, I don't know, half a dozen times, I think.
At least.
Yeah.
But my father introduced me to Richard. He said to me one day, "Are you going to Deauville for the yearling sales?" I said, "No, not this year." And he said, "You better go, because I told Richard Hannon you'd be there." So I met Richard there. I saw all the yearlings before he arrived. And I met him coming out of the races with Mick Shannon and the two girls. And I told him I'd seen everything. Are you coming to the sale? And he said, "Yes, I'm going to the sale, not to buy horses, just to buy drink." That's how it all started. We bought 2, and we were under bidders for 25, I'd say.
What is it that he liked and you liked in horses, and Ross likewise? I mean, because you've worked so well with Richard Jr., as I call him. I mean, what is it that you look for for a Hannon horse?
Just even when I was young, going around the sales with Peter, and Richard Sr. was there before Richard Jr. came on the scene to the actual sales. Even at the back ring there in Fairy House, you'd have Richard Sr., Peter, Frank Barry, Kevin Prendergast, proper judges looking at horses they like to see movement in the back ring. But Richard was always, Richard Sr. from my time growing up around him, he was always very particular about horses' movement, easy moving, good attitudes in the back ring, and very much obsessed with knees and conformation. So when I was coming through, Anna and Peter would obviously get me to be very serious about conformation and picking horses out, but a horse that fills your eye and you just find it very easy to look at.
Ross, you have limited money there. We're talking about buying horses on spec.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. They've been buying a lot of horses on spec for a long time, but more so in the last 10 or 12 years with Richard Jr. when he came on board. We weren't pushed together, which was great, but we two of us started working, I think when we were 24, we're the same age. And he was obviously working with his dad as an assistant, and he needed to buy some horse on spec for some clients he was building up. But we've had situations there where they could buy 70, 80, 90 horses on spec a year, and then they have to go and sell them to the clients.
My thoughts go with the sales company. I mean, what happens when you keep bidding and you've got 80 horses?
They never knew how many we had bought at that stage, unless they were keeping track of us. But Richard would get them sold. The two Richards, they could sell anything.
Tyrrell was one, obviously. It wasn't he?
Tyrrell was the first good horse I bought with Richard. Yeah. He won the 2 guineas, Irish and English guineas.
What struck you about him? Can you remember what
he was?
You
A lovely horse.
Yeah.
A lovely lady in the north of England, an Irish lady. Her sister was married to Derby winning trainer. I can't think of her name now. Lovely lady, and she was a great breeder. And we bought her. He was just a nice horse. He was by Thatching, who Richard liked anyway, the stallion, you know. And he was a nice horse.
Hannon is one name, but there have been so many. Captain Ryan Price, you've mentioned the Fred Rymel as well. John Sutcliffe Jr., another man that there was huge success. Mummy's Pat and Jimmy Reppin and more.
Marvellous horses with John Sutcliffe. John could train 2-year-olds really well, and the horses that went on, like Right Tack won the 2 first horse to win the Irish and the English guineas, you know.
Right Tack was bought for I only knew him as J.R. Brown. I think
right. He lived in Fox Rock, an Englishman. Yeah. And Jack and John bought him a filly to win the Irish guineas as well.
Jimmy Reppin. I remember him. I remember him finishing third to Saraiva and Patingo, and he went on to be champion miler.
Champion, and the great sprinter, Mummy's Pet, champion sprinter, and the Bryanston, another good sprinter. Great horses, sharp horses.
Tell me, back to Jack. I mean, Jack, one of his first purchases was another Flash.
Yes.
For John Byrne, won the champion hurdle.
Yeah. Well, Jack had been out of the business for a long time. He got TB twice, and he had to stop in the horse business altogether. And he was selling Ford cars in Dublin. He was Ireland's leading Ford salesman. And his friend John Byrne from Tralee in County Kerry asked him to buy him a horse. And the horse went to Paddy Slater, and he was another Flash, and he won the champion hurdle in 1960. And I met John Byrne Jr. the other day, and he said to me that Jack put another horse up to him after another Flash had done that, and Mr. Byrne said, I think I have enough horses. And it was going to cost £5,000 at the time, which is a lot of money, 60 or 61. And that horse turned out to be Millhouse. And Jack bought him for somebody else, for Sid Dale, who trained in Epsom. Yeah.
Ross, when you're looking at horses, I mean, you're looking at so many different types, flat and jumpers. Do you have a system? How do you work a sales paddocks?
Yeah, as I said, working with Anna and Peter, when I came into the business, they always had a system of where you'd look at every single horse and narrow them down physically to a short list. So we're lucky we have a great team of people: Carol Tinkler, Patrick Keogh, Andrew Hickman, Catherine Greenset, and Fanny Hannon has helped us over the years. So we'd go out and take our patches and narrow them down physically, and then myself and Peter go back and shortlist them even further, and then we'd end up going back with clients and looking at horses on the shortlist.
Do you agree on things?
Well, mostly. Mostly. Well, see, I started, I mean, Anna, who we haven't mentioned, started the business with me.
Yeah.
And we went along and we had an insurance business as well together. And she ran all those things and she used to come to the sales when she could and help spot for us, you know. And then when Ross came and there was 3 of us doing it, and then 𝐏𝐞𝐭⁰ joined us and the rest, the lads joined us as well. And the lovely, Catherine Greensett from Yorkshire as well. And Fanny, of course. Fanny came on board when I met Richard. And she's still with us.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
And you will go through these horses and you will have something to say about each one of them, and you can agree.
And then we make a short list.
Yeah.
And do second looks before the trainer sees them.
There's probably a consistency in the horses when you get down to the ones you really like. That's what I learned over the years. You end up having a very consistent type of horse you like for certain people as well. The Hannons being particular, they've consistent, medium-sized, strong, naturally good mover type of horse that's correct.
You keep talking about movement. Tell me that the first thing that gets into your hands is the pedigree. Do you do a short list from a catalogue first of all?
We wouldn't really shortlist as per se on the catalogue. You'd flick through the catalogue and you'd take notes and you'd mark family members you've purchased before, or relations, or stallions, broodmare sires, etc. But I think Peter told me a story about the great Captain Ryan Price when Jack was working with him, that he said you can't train paper. So all he wanted to see was the individual. And a lot of people we work with, trainers, end users, people, they want to see the individual. It's the most important thing. Hence we try and narrow down the athletes as much as we can.
We've talked about Captain Price and John Sutcliffe and these remarkable people. Have people changed since those days?
No, the trainers are great judges of horses. They have to train them and they know what can go wrong, usually. You know, if they're not correct, if they don't move well. I mean, Richard always said to me, you got to look at those horses and see the movement, see music, he said. Think of rhythm, you know. And I was very lucky to work with Liam Brown for 10 years in Ireland. I started with Liam. I sent him a yearling to train for a friend of mine, and we just got on well together for 10 years.
I want to know about a La Bavard that you bought from one of the first Tattersall's Ireland sales when we were in Ballsbridge. Tell me about the purchase of a horse that went on to better things.
Well, Liam and I wanted to buy a yearling in Tattersall's Ballsbridge. It was there, and it's been sold by Martin McHenry, who bred Red Rum. So this is a lovely horse by Liam Bavard. They make a lovely bumper horse. That's what Liam wanted, and we bought him for 7,800, and he ended up being second in the Epsom Derby. It was a 3-year-old.
Carlingford Castle. Great story, isn't it?
Unbelievable story, yeah. Just shows you though, where horses can come, any horse, top class horses can come from anywhere like that.
And he was half brother to a good sprinter of Noel Meads at the time. Noel was only a young trainer at the time.
Tell me about the Derby sale and the Doyles. What do you expect to see? And I mean, you've had huge successes in it. It'll be very exciting this year.
Yeah, good. Well, Ross got me back into it by saying we should buy a few 3-year-olds. You know, so we went round the Derby sale, and we did buy a 3-year-old there by Flemingsford from Dermot O'Brien's wife.
Jean.
Lost in Translation.
What did we give for him?
Lost in Translation,
Yeah,
of course.
That was him.
Yeah.
I think Peter was very concentrated on the flat, because when I got into the business, it was very much Richard Hannons. There was a lot of horses to see in the flat situation. Maybe the National Hunt horses sort of fell away a bit, and then I got an order to go and find a horse for an amateur to ride in Point of Points. I happened to go to Willie Codd's yard in Wexford, and I remember ringing Peter on the way home and said, God, that man, his horses look unreal. I said, I'd love to send him a horse. I said, why don't we should buy a store this year. So we went to the Derby sale. This was back in 2007. And I pulled a few family members together and a few pals, and we bought a horse by back called Inspector Tracy at the time, off Mickley Stud. And he went down to Willie. Willie got him ready for a Point to Point. I think he won his second start by 10 lengths. Jamie got on board, a great Tattersall's member now of the team there. He rode him, and we got him sold, and that was the start of it. And we started doing more and more of it. Had a lot of success at Willie, a wonderful man. Did a great job, and that's the Lost in Translation came along. Horses like the Paparazzi Kid off Derrygrath, both came from Derrygrath, great nursery. And that probably just kicked on, and Lost in Translation got our relationship going with the Tizard family, who are wonderful people, and now we're buying plenty of stores for them. They love coming to the Derby sale. It's a wonderful location, it's a wonderful setup, and when you get there, it's like a kid in a candy shop. The horses are magnificent when they pull out.
We bought actually a very good horse. My father did in Tattersall Ferry House sale before, when it was in Ballsbridge. He bought him 2 years running, horse called Silver Book.
Silverbuck. Yes.
He bought him as a 4-year-old
Yeah.
for John O'Connor's mother.
And your late
father.
brother trained him early.
Paul
didn't
trained
Paul-
him. Yeah, Paul trained him. Yeah, he won 2 points and a bumper, and that was Silver Book.
What do you feel that the Derby sale has done for Irish bloodstock in 50 years?
Unbelievable, sure. It's been perceived as a premier store sale around the world, isn't it? And it's a magnificent sale, and you can see when you turn up there at the end of June, you get there to do your early inspections. People are very excited to be there. It's like you walk out of the car park down the path to the building there, and you see the amount of top class horses in the posters on the way up there, and you just want to have one of yours up there one day. And we were lucky enough to have a horse like Lostintranslation up there, which is great, and a few others. So it's a magnificent sale.
How easy do you find Fairy House as a sales paddocks to work?
It's very easy to work. And if it rains, you don't have to get wet as well. You know, it's just easy to work. It's on the flat, basically. You know, it's small little hill, not much.
It's a stunning sales facility now to go to, which is very enticing for potential owners and trainers when they come as well. They enjoy being there, and they're extremely well looked after by
Very well looked after.
the likes of Neve and all the team there who help out with hotels, etc. But everything's done for you.
Ross, is the Derby sale format sufficient? How could it be improved, or is it what we want at the moment?
I think it's definitely what we want. It's a wonderful format, 2 days, maybe 200 horses a day. It's extremely workable. Obviously the location's fantastic for Dublin Airport, so clients find it very easy. We can get in there with our team 2 days beforehand, narrow the horses down. So when the clients arrive, we can get around the sales ground very easy. It's a nice number to go around. There's a consistency in horses, so people are in good form then when the sale starts because they've seen very nice horses. It's all worked very easy, very well, and it probably encourages people to get stuck in it a bit more.
June the 26th and 27th are the 2 big days. You're walking into the sales palace. Describe the horse that you want to have, that you want to see, your dream horse.
I think that, well, it's in the Derby sale. It's been renowned for many, many years. It's a lovely stamp of a horse, plenty of size, fills the eye, great movers. You know, there's great consistency there over the years. I think that's probably why it's got to the level it's got to as a sale, world renowned and so many people want to come back every year because there's a consistency in a very, very smart horse that fills your eye the minute you see them, and then they take off to walk or trot and they float away. It's a lovely thing to see.
I'm hoping that you will both be with us to say happy birthday on the 26th and 27th.
We will.
Wonderful talking to you both.
Thank you.
And huge congratulations on all the achievements over the generations and onwards and upwards. Derby sale 26th and 27th.
Looking forward
You'll
to it.
be
Thanks,
there.
Robert.